everybody. Welcome back to the most recent edition of the Match Grade podcast. Tonight, I've got a instructor that I met just recently. Heard a lot about him, not just sucking up to him. I've heard his name, heard the company name, and just with the time and schedule, it's always hard to connect with people you want to connect with or should. And we ran into each other earlier this year at the A Girl and a Gun conference, and I got talking to Shelly, his wife, the ever bubbly is a better word for it. Words today. Promoter, selfless promoter, like somebody claims me to be. And we just got talking about stuff, and she's like, you got to have Brian on your podcast. I'm like, yes, I do. So here we are, Brian. Welcome to the Match Grade podcast.
Well, I'm honored that my wife coerced you into this. Thank you.
Sometimes it can be good. Sometimes it's
Yep.
like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. But you know, everything I remembered and seeing, watching you teach on some of the videos that I found, like, yeah, this guy's got a good style. I like it. So Brian, tell us about the Complete Combatant and a quick background on you. What got you into this?
Well, I got involved in martial arts early in my life because I came out of a pretty dysfunctional household and I needed structure. I knew I was going to be a bane on the universe if I didn't get some structure in my life. And as all of us do, you start training, and before you know it, you're teaching classes. And I began teaching and found a great love for it and became a lifelong passion. Now, I had several other jobs along the way because, martial arts doesn't pay very well. It's not a very good business. But I did some law enforcement, I did some security work, I did some bouncing and things like that. But I've been a lifelong coach, and I've gone through all the generations of martial arts. I started out in the Chinese generation of Kung Fu and Wing Chun because I was going to be Bruce Lee, and Taekwondo, and then I went to kickboxing, went to boxing, went to full contact karate. Then I went to just regular kickboxing, and then jiu-jitsu came along, and I did MMA after that. So I got to do a lot of different things, and I found that I have a great interest in how people perform under pressure and how, as
Okay.
a coach, I can find the best version of a person. And I found that most coaching is counterintuitive to what we believe it to be: how to get people to perform well, how to get them to their highest level. Uh, we ran a force on force class inside my gym for about 7 years. And then the industry demanded I become a shooting coach after I tried to die of COVID and lost my gym. So I travel. I'm on the week. I was almost 200 nights this year in a hotel room. So I travel a
Wow.
lot. I teach a lot. I love what I do, and I'm very fortunate. And my wife is the uh, other side of the business who keeps it all going and does everything that needs to happen to make this company really survive.
She's like the master chief, and you're the talent.
Hmm. Hmm. You got to have
Yeah,
both.
we need
I
that.
don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how my friends do it by themselves. It's too much,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, in talking to another one of my mentors I mentioned earlier, Dave Spalding, he and I had some really good discussions about the traveling trainer
Hmm.
lifestyle and, what it takes to do that.
Hmm.
And you know what? I think I'm going to stick with a couple, three trips here or there just to go
Hmm.
travel to meet some fun people and teach them. I'm going to stay home. I don't need to be on the circuit. I don't need to be on the national stage. Um, I've had I've had quite a few people where I have traveled or people have run into me like, Dave, you've got a great presentation style. You're a really good instructor. You've got really good skills. Why aren't you out there? And the quick answer is, I don't think I need to be. There's a lot of great guys out there. Let them have the fun, and then let me have fun in my little niche. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. But I'm not going to pass up an offer if somebody says, hey, why don't you come to so and so,
Hmm.
over here and do one of these classes or something like that. I'll talk. Well, let's see if we can put it
Hmm.
together. But
Yeah.
yeah, 200 and something nights a year. That's a
Yeah.
lot. That's a lot. Well,
You're a wise man to
um,
stay home.
yeah, not a lot at home. I like, I got a pretty good business here, and I don't want to take it away or dilute it by not
Hmm.
being here. I've got a great team behind me,
Hmm.
but still, if I'm not here, there's things that I can't do that need to be done. So um, it's just it's a labor of love, as we all
Amen.
discover. Oh yeah, I kind of took the same path. I started getting into shooting and started learning that there's a little more to shooting. than just, aiming and pressing the trigger. And then I started really get into the combative aspects of the firearms world, or art, as John Farnham calls it.
Mhm.
Um, and then I started learning. I just don't know enough to get to where I want to be. I was competent enough, but I wanted to be more. And then it just kind of built. I started working with people, started sharing my knowledge, and some guy came up to me and said, "You should take an NRA instructor course." And I just realized that was the starting point. It's like every addict starts with milk, right? That was the hook. It just got me. But with you looking at your background and looking at the bio that Shelly sent over, um, this is something that I don't I don't know how many instructors actually set out to go, you know what? I just learned to shoot. I want to be an instructor and I'm going to be really good and I want to do it. I'm going to dedicate 10 years of my life to becoming a good instructor. I think it just happens. I think it,
Yeah,
it just
I actually had an
gets there.
apprenticeship. I found a
Oh, really?
guy
Yeah.
and I helped him. I just did it free of charge for 4 years, helped him learn the in and out of the business. It was
Hmm.
really important to me that way. I was running the gym. He trained with me. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that old style apprenticeship is something that's very necessary in this industry.
Oh, I'll tell you, I'm between the training organizations. I'm a training counselor as well.
Hmm.
And I really would wish that they would put in a certification, then an apprenticeship build to become an instructor. And they don't have it. You just get certified and you're out in the streets, go. And I would willingly become a mentor for people that want to take on an apprenticeship. And I kind of do it with my people, but there's nothing on the national stage. I agree. It's sorely missing.
Hmm.
Um, so getting into a couple things. I'm not going to get into the, like the old 10 question thing. I'm just going to throw some random stuff at you to see,
Yeah.
like everybody can figure out what makes Brian Hill tick, right?
Good
um,
luck.
Maybe we don't want to know. I don't know. I tried that with Dave. He goes, "You don't want to know what's going on up here all the time." Um, one of the things that I always ask is, what's the biggest? We just talked about missing out on an apprenticeship type of setup. Like somebody new wants to get into it, but they're not looking to compete. They just want to learn, and they want to develop into that next generation. Um, what else would you say is missing in our firearms training world that just could make it phenomenal?
Yeah, one thing that's very difficult for this is reputable information. There's such a deluge of information, especially in social media. It's really hard to know what's good. And we see a lot of virtue signaling where people repeat the same things over and over. And then a lot of people who have very valuable information don't tend to put it out,
Yeah.
you know? Uh,
It's like they're afraid to engage
yeah,
because
or it's
why?
just not in their nature either, I don't think,
Yeah.
and they don't put the good information out. So we have a lot of information sometimes that comes out of maybe the gun range or somewhere else that really takes people off course for quite a while. If say you're going to be an MMA fighter, there's a very clear path forward. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you learn very quickly what you're missing. But the problem in shooting is you don't know what you're missing very quickly. And you only have two vehicles for that is that, you really engage in high level training and get great training and find that, or you become a competitive shooter, you
Hmm.
know, and you shoot IDPA, USPSA, or you do both and get really good at that. But
Yeah.
there's no easy way into either aspect unless you find somebody who's a valuable source that you can trust you
Right.
know and I think it's
Yeah.
important for us as instructors to not only promote ourselves but promote people that we value in the industry and help other people select and then but it's difficult. There's
Oh.
a lot of information out there that's very difficult to overcome. I'll say it that way.
Or yeah, I get people that send me videos all the time. They'll find this on here or this
Hmm.
over here, and
Yeah.
and then they go, "What do you think about this?" And
Hmm.
my first reaction is, "It's crap."
Yeah.
but they think it's great because they discovered it, and I've got to politely explain it to them why it's garbage. Or, hey, that's a great idea. Where did you find that? Where did this guy
Mhm.
get this? And then we go into research mode, you know. Um, the one thing that I found is unfortunately pretty popular is the old like the snatch and improve kind of thing. They put a different title on that same
Mhm.
thing. The one thing that Spalding really ingrained in when I was watching him teach, and when I was learning how to teach his stuff, is attribution. You
Mhm.
got to give credit where credit's due. You know, he said one thing a long time ago, and it stuck with me. It's like all the ways to shoot a gun have been invented. It's just the delivery method now, right? So if somebody says, "Oh, I invented this new way of pressing the trigger," no, you didn't. Or this new grip, no, you didn't.
Yeah. Yep.
You saw it somewhere and you thought it was cool, and it's been 30 years since somebody talked about it, so you figured you'd bring it back. Yeah, okay. Um, but it's just there's so much value and potential for growth in this industry when instructors can collaborate. Um, the one of the interesting things is when my first trip to TACON, I just went and listened to live fire blocks, listened to some lectures, and I just sucked it in. Then my second one and third ones, I got on the live fire courses and I started sucking it in. But the resources that were there, hundreds, almost 100 instructors, and then at Robin's thing, the Girl in the Gun National Conference, I was blown away by the playlist. It was amazing. And then I wanted to like let Wendy teach the class and go, and I was going to go and like, I'm going to go peek on this one and peek on this guy and check this guy and watch this style. Um, but it's just, there's so much potential when we can collaborate. And I always tell people, if you want to be a colleague, we can make this industry great. And we can basically sideline the instructors that don't know what they're doing, and they're almost dangerous because they're just teaching people stupid stuff. Or they'll learn from it and they'll get better. But
At the highest level too, we see that we all
ooh,
agree on about 90% of everything.
uh-huh.
We have a 10% a little disagreement on this or that, and it's intent, maybe preference, things like that. But
Yeah.
really good instructors should share knowledge because there's an abundance. There's not a scarcity. We have enough people. There's people that need to be trained, and what we do is tend to really get a good product out then because it's very important to have peers that you can speak to
Yeah.
because you really get off trusted as a martial arts guy, you can really get off on the wrong place if you don't have peers to correct you occasionally and say, hey, what do you think
You're
about
gonna go
this?
in the
Yeah.
wrong way. You gotta get
Are you sure what you're doing is the right thing?
yeah, yeah.
So, that's very important for us too, that we share and we spend time and, we don't argue over small, insignificant things that don't really matter in the long run, you know? And I see a growing trend of that, of people not saying this is the only way to do something, but saying we're sharing a path here. And I think a girl in a gun is a great example because Robin's a great leader. So she
Oh
won't
yeah.
let you teach there unless she believes in it, and her her
Mhm.
her clients love it. If they don't, you're out. And
Yeah.
that's made a very good thing because we get a feedback loop from the people that are training and from a good leader, and then
Uh,
it
I
works
know.
great that
Kind
way.
of kind of get you right here when you get
Yeah,
that
yeah,
feedback
yeah.
database. Yeah, I was it was funny is she invited me one year, and she had a cancellation, last minute cancellation,
Hmm.
and her and I had been in each other's orbit for quite a while. And all of a sudden I get this message, "Hey Dave, would you like to be, a presenter and do some teaching? I need a." So I called her up, we talked, and I was already committed to another thing, and I could not get out of it. I just no way I was going to cancel on that. So I said, next year, yes, tell me the dates. And she told me like in secret, like that day. And I go, okay, I'm going to put them on my calendar. I'm there. So, and now let's see, this upcoming one's going to be our fourth year there,
Yeah.
I think. So yeah, I look forward to it. The area is
Mhm.
beautiful, and just the
God.
energy. God, the first year I did not know what to expect. And when I heard them, they had their big pep rally in the beginning of
Yeah.
the day, and all I heard was just this loud female version of a roar.
Mhm.
And Wendy and I looked at each other, we're like, what are we getting into? And then we just got 16 high energy women on the range, and
Mhm.
it was awesome. So yeah, that's where we need to be. And then I don't mind going. I'll go every year she'll have me. I
Yeah,
think it's awesome.
me too.
So I'm going to skip around on a couple of things here. Going into the past and everything, was there an experience that you had while learning to shoot that you use today or every so often to remind yourself when you work with students?
Yes, there's quite a few, but one that strikes me that is publicly available for anybody who wants to see an arc of improvement for a human being is I tried to shoot the FBI drill as my very first video ever on the
Okay.
YouTube. And it's called Brian Hill Shoots the FBI Drill. And I could not manage the drill, the shooting, and the camera at the same time because I'd never done all these things. And it really frayed me. And the shooting was okay, but it wasn't great. And, but it taught me to remember what it feels like when you're overwhelmed. And what I
Okay.
did to myself was too much. I didn't rehearse, I didn't prepare well. I put too much on myself and said, I can just wing it and get it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that can never happen to my clients. There has to
Yep.
be a modulation where they don't feel like they're drinking from a fire hose, but they're actually getting the lesson, repeating the lesson, learning from the lesson, improving it, learning from what's too little, too much. And that was a great lesson for me. And it exists, and I can go back and watch it at any time whenever I feel a little down, as we all do occasionally, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, because you train, and part of your life you're going to be miserable training. That's the truth of athleticism. Doing anything athletically, you have to be dissatisfied because that's where real growth is. Uh,
Yeah.
but you often forget how much you've improved because it's natural to you now. And then now we can go back and look and go, oh, like Dave Spalding, you can see his arc of growth as an instructor
Oh yeah.
over time and the
We
thinking
all
that
do. We
goes
all have
into
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even us changing our minds about things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing I would say with that is I often say this to my class is future Brian apologizes for what I'm teaching right now because I'm probably wrong about something. I just don't know yet. And present Brian is
Yeah.
somewhat ashamed of what past Brian taught occasionally because he was wrong about that. And when you keep that kind of, I don't think it's truly humility alone. I think it's self-awareness
Okay.
of recognizing the growth as an instructor and as a human being, and that you're going to make mistakes and hold yourself accountable. It's just like shooting, you know. I
Yep.
tend to shoot in the high 90%, which means if I shoot 92% on a drill, that means 8 shots are other absolute horrific shots. That's just how it is. But that's where the learning is it not?
Yep. Yep. And I find a lot of people, number one, we all, as humans, we have an ego, the
Hmm.
sense of self, but sometimes
Hmm.
the ego overrides the logic, and we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to look bad. We don't want to
Hmm.
feel bad about our practice session. One of my instructors a long time ago told me, um, when you're out practicing and let's say you're trying to do like a one hole group, you're just trying to really dial that accuracy down, and you're moving the target out and dialing it down more, and it's not working. He told me, stop and go home. And I actually did that for a long time. And then I started, learning more about human performance, all the psychological stuff behind the physical part. And I found out that was the worst thing to do. So how about just stop for a second, take a break, unplug, put it all back together, go back to the basics, slow things down, build the confidence back up, and get some good reps. And as soon as I remember doing it, and there was some new stuff that I was learning and working on, I remember that. Oh, it's not working. No, wait, hold on, stop. I unplugged. I just took a break, and then I went back to it and say, okay, what are the basics I need to break this thing down into? Now let's go back to work. And the day was great. The day was great, and I actually got better in the long run because I was able to get out of here and make it work. So that's a pretty good thing. It's like, um, as instructors, it's hard not to want to give the students everything that you know, because you want to see them succeed. And we know if we pay attention, we have to basically feed them little tidbits and let them grow, and then feed another one and build. So that's cool. Um, let's see. Randomly picking another one here. Now, if you had one piece of advice to offer those who are searching for their first training course, what would it be?
That's hard. It's hard to give one piece of advice on that. But depending on your group, you have two ways to do this. I would read the reviews or the comments
Mm-hmm.
of anything that you're going to see where the direction is, or find somebody who has some information in the industry to help you go in that direction. It's so hard. It's such a crazy thing to be able to pick the first one, and a lot of people are doing good work, and what I always look for is in class pictures, do I see people that look different than the instructor?
Okay.
That means
Yeah.
he has breadth as an instructor. He can teach women, children, men. It doesn't matter. He's a good instructor. If everybody looks like the instructor, we had this in martial arts all the time. He can only
Mhm.
teach one type of person. And there's nothing wrong with that. You may make a whole business out of that, you know? Like I do
Right.
fairly well in the law enforcement circles because I look like a cop. I
Hmm.
talk like a cop, so I'm automatically into that. It makes it easier than that. And, I'm grateful that God, stamped me out of a G.I. Joe doll factory and I got the look. But that's not the way to pick things. The
Right.
right way is, can they teach a lot of different people? Can she teach a lot of different people? It doesn't really matter. We're looking for competency as a coach. The shooting skill is necessary, but more importantly, I want a teacher. I want a coach. And I want somebody who can reach a lot of people and could reach somebody who walks through the door and does it easily. And that's a lot harder. Um, I get a lot of questions about how to pick a martial arts gym, which is the same as shooting. And the
Hmm.
thing I always tell them is look at the class picture, see how many different people in there. Um,
Right.
uh, if you get a chance to interact with the instructor, uh, ask them what they feel is important. What their goal is. If they don't say it's your success, be very wary of that. And it's difficult. We go through the same thing daily. How do you pick a good mechanic? How do you pick a good doctor? You know,
Hmm.
and we've got great resources now because everybody's got a Google review.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And if
yep,
they screw up and somebody, it
yep,
was it was enough that it got
hmm,
somebody to take that extra step, they
yep.
will know about it.
Yeah,
That's
my
cool.
very first lesson was a class and I went to, and the guys paid no attention. And I'd been practicing, so I shot fairly well already. And he came to me at the end of the class. He goes, I don't know why you're in this class. And I was like, isn't that a failure though? He should be able to modulate and help me too.
Yeah.
I had to be making errors. I'm still
Hmm.
making errors, so I know I was making them in the 80s for sure. But
Right.
that's the key. Does the instructor have that ability to we often say the student needs to come to the instructor, but it's always the other way around. You have to come to your clients, and they come from all different walks of life and different backgrounds. And um, something in this industry you don't address sometimes is most people are here for post-traumatic growth. They've
Yeah.
already had the bad incident and they have survived it. They no longer want to be a victim of it. And not just a survivor, but now they want to walk and have their strength and their power back to roam without the fear that has been inhibiting them. And that's why a lot of people come to learn to shoot. Something horrible has happened. So, as an instructor, your job is to rebuild that self esteem and the psychological scarring as long as you're teaching a skill at the same time, which is a very martial arts way to look at it, but it's very important.
Well, if you
Yeah,
really think about it, shooting is a version of a
it
martial art,
is.
right?
It is. It
It
is.
meets, it hits all the criteria.
Yep.
Yeah.
Certainly does.
So it's just a different tool and different concept.
Hmm. Yep.
Um, so we'll go in a different direction. This question always has an interesting story as a result. And um, it is a negative, and we always try to avoid teaching the
Hmm.
negatives, but What was the dumbest thing you've seen a student do?
Wow.
I know 10
Yeah.
just came to mind, right?
Yeah. I tell you though, this is the one that sticks with me, and I even have a protocol named after him, which I won't name him in case he ever watches this. Doubtful, but
You can tell me in person.
yeah, he was very, very strict about other people's safety in class. So he come to a force on force class,
Hmm.
and we were doing dry practice, and we used barrel disablers, and we used the tap rack system so they could guns couldn't be loaded. They could practice dry practice, and he wasn't satisfied after we checked them and after we put the barrel blockers in them. He wanted to check everyone himself, and I was like, "Good for you." All
Okay.
right, nothing wrong with that. He comes to a live fire class, and we have a strict rule about not handling guns behind the firing line. Very common rule. Everything has to be done up by the targets on the line, so there's no gun handling behind the line. And we took a little break. Everybody's supposed to go reload their magazines, and he came back with a different firearm. So it means behind my back, he violated the rules. So it's always interesting. The people that often are strictest on the rules are the easiest on themselves. There's a
Yeah.
creative maliciousness in safety because once they feel safe, they're no longer required to practice this. And I've done a lot of research into it, especially with the car industry. We've made cars so incredibly safe that people become more reckless.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The
I
better the
don't
road, the better the
not
car,
disagree
more
there.
reckless. Yep.
Yep.
That was a
Yeah, I got all these
significant lesson.
bags around me and I've got this crumple zone and my
Yeah.
car will tell me if
So
I'm
I don't
too
have to pay
close.
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can do
Yep.
do 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 do. Oh, I just hit that dude. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was an
Yeah, that's
interesting lesson
interesting.
for me. And I
Yeah.
did ask him to leave class because that was maliciousness. That was willful, you know. And he knew the rules and he willfully disobeyed it. And he also enforced the rules. So I have a bit of a problem with hypocrisy anyway, in that way. And I was like, I just can't train you because you knew the rules well enough to apply them to others, except for yourself. So
Yeah. I've had that happen too, where I've told people,
yeah,
the same thing, same idea,
yeah,
same concept.
hmm
And all of a sudden, I'm up on the line running one group and I hear slides being manipulated behind me. And I
yeah,
turn around and this guy's got his gun bag on the ground and he's playing with a
hmm
gun and I'm like, what are you doing? And he went through the same
hmm
thing. Well, I was just stop there. You're done. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and it's a safety issue, it's a trust issue,
yeah,
and it's a competency issue. I'm going to send you out into the world to follow the rules. And if
hmm
you can't follow them on the range, what good are you going to be out there?
hmm
It's crazy. But yeah, and you named it after the guy. Okay, I'm gonna have to remember that
I,
one.
well, you always get protocols or regulations or rules named after bad ideas.
What's the old meme? Sometimes you are the reason for the safety briefing.
That's right.
Oh, geez. All right, let's flip flop this a little bit.
All right.
Actually, there's two. We might build on it. What accomplishment are you most proud of in your career? And you've had a couple, I know, so you can pick one. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. Shooting wise, I'd say getting the champion award at the Rangemaster Tactical Conference. That's a
Okay,
good one.
that's a
Very
nice one.
much shot a perfect score, very present. I wasn't alone in that, but it was a very good. It hangs on my wall over there to remind me of the day that I did well. Uh,
Way to go!
Perfection.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I think outside of that, I'm most proud of the young men and women that I've saved from a life other than what it could have been. And I have several that I'm very proud of that have done a tremendous job. And as a child who came out of an abusive household, we often make the choice to become protectors ourselves. Law
Okay, gotcha.
enforcement, military. It always you either a perpetrator or a protector. But I said it would never happen. But then I said I have to do something about it. So every time I reach somebody and I can help build them, and they're building themselves, but if I can have a hand in it, a small hand in it, that's been my biggest accomplishment. It's the best thing I've done in my life. And I can look at probably 15 people that train with me in martial arts and shooting that have significantly changed the way they deal with the world and themselves. And there is nothing better for a coach than that. That
Yeah,
is the key. Yeah, that's the energy.
you get that
And
little
that's
feeling right
yep.
here. Yeah,
hmm
right. You're like,
Yep.
I did something
Yep.
good, and they're gonna keep going. Yeah.
And I'm older
Um,
now, so my job is to grow the next version of me, who's going to take my spot. And I'm already
that's
doing
right.
that. I'm trying. Yep. So, we've got to think about the future. And I think that's the greatest thing is growing the future and seeing a real difference. A lot of people complain about young people, but then isn't that your failure as a leader?
Uh-huh.
If you don't like the way young people act, we failed as leaders. And I'm an elder Gen Xer, so it's really hard to take responsibility in that way. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Punk
we
rock
we
didn't get
grew
me
up,
ready for that. Yeah.
yeah, we grew up self-sufficient,
Yeah.
so we can't understand somebody who's like, how do you order lunch?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But it's nice to
Oh,
change people, and you never know as an instructor the impact you're having.
yeah.
In a 2 or 3 hour lesson, you can significantly change the way somebody processes information and the way they process them, thinking about themselves. And I've had people call me up and, things I don't remember clearly or at all sometimes. And this was so impactful to them.
Yeah.
That's why we have to be great examples all the time. We have to have a high level of emotional intelligence while we're teaching. And because you don't know how you're impacting people for good or for worse. But that's a good question. I like that question. Well done.
Good. Good.
That's a very good one.
Once in a while, I put a couple words together. They
You
work.
do all right. You do all right. But I do a lot of podcasts, so that's a good question. Uh,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that
Steal it.
yeah. Well,
You-
it shows people who you're talking to. What do they value? Like you just did to me what I said you ought to do to an instructor, you know? And I've got shooting accolades and I'm proud of doing things and it's great, but that never lasts for long, but the future, you know. I want to leave this better than I came into it, you know.
That's right. That's our goal.
Yep.
That's our goal. Um, so this might be, I don't know. We'll see if this is a tough one or not. Staying up on the high part here. What's the bravest thing you've ever seen anyone do?
There's a lot of that. And everybody wants the dramatic moment, but the hero's journey is we have to leave home and be uncomfortable and travel to the cave where the dragon lives because that's where the treasure is. And I have
Yeah.
seen people who have utterly not believed in themselves do the thing that they never thought they could do and step up to it. And
Okay.
I have a couple. Let me zero in on one though. Um,
All right.
she really wants to be a teacher, but she doesn't really believe in herself in the way that she should. Um, and she's doing all the right things because they're the right things, but she didn't realize how hard it was to pay back the group that was supporting you. You have a duty as an instructor to pay back what's being given to you because we're being funded, we're being accepted. Gun people are great.
Oh yeah.
Here's ammo, here's a holster, here's a firearm, and then people watch our stuff and they comment. Most of it's really good, sometimes it's not, right? But they're always paying us. So
To
as an
keep us honest.
instructor, we have to practice because we owe our clients the best versions of ourselves. We don't do it because practice is boring. I've been practicing my whole life.
Hmm.
Involved in practice since I was 12. So that's 48 years of practice. It's boring. Nobody enjoys it. It's hard to get started. But if you're an instructor, you owe the practice to your clients, to your shooters, because they need the best version of your instructorship. And that's how you're going to do it. And that's one of the most brave things I've ever seen somebody do because we had to have a hard talk about it. And that person grew in that moment and became a significantly better instructor. And the real growth is in your blind spots when you can't see
Oh
it.
yeah.
How do you know it's there? And then when somebody points it out to you, you have two choices. You can say, well, you're an idiot. And that's not
Yeah.
true. Or you
And
can
there
say,
goes
oh
the
my
ego.
God, yeah, I'm a horrible person. And that is true. Or you can take action about it. And
Hmm.
I think I've seen a lot of bravery like that to really to grow. But that's usually what it looks
Oh,
like. You know,
yeah.
it's
Um,
hard. I wish it was a cool war story, but uh,
no, that's fine.
those are the real battles that we fight. That's what's
Yeah.
going to win the fight for you is we're going to take all these small fights, make them cumulative, and you're going to build a self-image that knows exactly what you're capable of.
And then we're gonna go out and change the world.
That's right.
There we go. Let's see. So now you spent some time in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could take one piece of tech back to the start of your career, and it would work. Just, in our fantasy world up here, no matter what it is, it would work. What do you think that would be?
Oh, it's easy. Pepper spray. We had pepper spray, it just didn't work, you know,
Now
because
the
there
stuff
was,
works better.
yeah, well, there was no, there was, we didn't have Palm and
Hmm.
Sabre making a good product. If you could
Yep.
put pressure in a bottle, there could be anything inside of that. Nobody knew, ran a spectrograph on the peppers. So we didn't really know how well it worked, and we didn't have a
Yeah.
good version of it. So you got widely different things across the board. But for the armed citizen, for law enforcement, as Chuck Haggard says, it's someplace between a harsh word and a gun. Pepper spray is the great equalizer of the world when you need to use force that doesn't count as force, you know.
There you go. Yeah,
And
that's pretty good.
yeah, I think that in now we didn't have it early, and we were a lot rougher then. It was a different world. It was. So they hired fighters and they hired shooters.
Hmm.
That's not what they're hiring as much anymore. They want people with a great record who've never been in trouble. But in law enforcement, you need somebody who's been in a bit of trouble so they know what it looks like, they know how it
Yeah.
acts, and then they could
They
get
know how
ahead of
to,
it.
they
Yeah,
can get in that cycle and
yeah.
they can talk. Yeah.
Now I wish they'd given us more training on how to talk to people. Well,
Hmm.
I should have read Dale Carnegie then.
Yeah, right.
you know,
We're going to
I
make you part of the
yeah,
solution, right?
yeah. Verbal judo would have been very helpful, but and it's
Eh,
interesting. And right now, that's the thing that's missing in our industry is a lot of people are not able to deselect themselves or create any sorts of avoidance or actually have any verbal flexibility when they talk to people.
mhm.
And that
That's
that
got to
is
be
a
hard.
very difficult skill. Well, think about it. You don't even have to talk to people when you go shopping anymore.
No.
You don't have to deal with somebody checking you out. You don't have to go on the bank. You can spend your whole life not talking to people except on the internet,
Yeah. And that's not
and you're
really in
not really
person. It's
talking.
just
Yeah.
some dude on a video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I think that would be
Let's
very helpful.
Okay. Okay. Better spray. Okay. Here's another one. A little 2020 hindsight question for you.
All right.
Okay. If you could go back to the start of when you formed the complete combatant and do anything differently, would there be anything? And what
Oh
would it
yeah.
be?
Oh yeah. So many lessons learned. Yeah. Now, it was easier for me as I was a fully functioning instructor already. So I've been teaching 12 hours a day, 5 or 6 days a week for 4 decades. So I had a lot to do, but I got caught in things that weren't important at the beginning of this. And I'm going to give you the one that probably will turn more heads than anything. I have a good friend, Claude Warner, and Claude
Hmm.
was the chief instructor at Rogers. So he has a unique skill set. He's a very good shooter, and he gets to see everybody shoot. And he warned me early in my career not to get caught in a timer too much, and I knew better. So I did my own thing, and I found myself in the timer trap occasionally. And what I mean by that is the timer is really for efficiency. When it feels like it took no effort, but the timer says it was fast, that's what we're pursuing. When we do it and it feels like it's fast, but it's not, the brain doesn't tell time well when it's fully involved. It's transient hypofrontality. The front of the brain shuts down. We
Hmm.
can't tell time. We're not separate from the event. So the timer is very useful that way. But every draw, every drill shouldn't be lived on the timer because you're forgetting what the cost of doing business is and you pursue hundreds of seconds. And we've all done this one. But that's something I would spend a little less time on. Now I have a significantly fast draw. And I will forever because the amount of time. But what I found was it's not real in
Okay.
performance mode. I don't see it happening to myself or other high level of shooters. I see more like a 1 or 1-1, because we need to see what's happening. We need to actually make a decision about aiming, which costs us a quarter second. So it's good to
Hmm.
develop these skills, but don't let it be the end all be all. You are not your
Oh,
draw.
yeah.
You are not your bullseye. You're not your shooting. You are the decisions you make based on time and information. And I would rather have a better grip on that earlier, and I would have taught my classes, because I'm coming out of force on force. It was a bit different, and I knew there was a wide array in this, but that's something I would spend a little less time on. Um, And it's funny, I just read Brian Eno's book for, oh, I don't know, the 14th time because, his Zen mind really appeals to me. But he said, don't shoot every drill on the timer. He just
Yeah.
shoot it by what you see. Let vision and decision guide the shooting always. So um, that's a good question too. I like that one.
Yeah.
That's well thought out. No, that drugged some
Thank
stuff
you.
out of me, and I'm almost hesitant to talk about it. So it must have been embarrassing.
Right? It
Yep.
made me feel bad. I don't want to go away. Uh, stop it, Dave. Um, so let's see. We covered most of those. Accomplishment. There's one of them. Actually, I will throw it out there. And you get to choose either law enforcement career or teaching shooting career. Okay. What have been or what would be one or a couple biggest changes that you've seen in either one of those?
That's interesting because it mirrors each other.
Yeah. All
Uh,
right.
there's a high level of competency now existing, especially in law enforcement. If we're talking about a small agency, maybe 100 officers or less, because they're riding solo now, their shooting skills have had to increase. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a large county, you may be 45 minutes away from backup. But
Yeah.
interestingly, on the private sector side, we've seen we know what good metrics are now, what people are capable of in shooting. We weren't quite sure before. When we came out, like the bill drill, under 3 seconds
Yeah.
from concealment was a very normal thing. Now I routinely see people right around the 2 second mark from concealment. We've got better equipment, we've got better training, and now we have better metrics to know what humans are able to perform.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Olympics. No record in the Olympics is ever broken by very much. Hundredth of a
Right.
second, a tenth of a second, with the exception of the javelin. Uh, there was a German dude that came out and threw a javelin so far they made the javelin heavier because they were afraid he was going to throw it into the crowd. He was an outlier. It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
We have outliers in our industry too, but what we're seeing is this parallel development of what people are capable of doing. And if we even look at 90s GM level shooters, M class shooters compared to now, there's a significant change in how good they are. And then I teach a lot of law enforcement classes and I see officers in their mid 30s who are the firearms instructor, who are a USPSA M class shooter, who
Mm-hmm.
take their business very and they're in a deliberate coaching class to get better at it because it matters. It's no longer the place to tuck somebody so they can't do further damage or because they were a good shooter and I don't know how to coach. And I see a real
Yeah.
dramatic change. And it's not everywhere, but I think same thing in the private sector. We're seeing the same thing where we're seeing um, unlikely sources of people becoming significantly competent at the skills, in all shapes or sizes. And that is a big change in the world, and that's the good thing of YouTube.
Mhm.
You can't lie and hide anymore, you know?
Someone's going to
Yeah.
have it on
Yeah.
video.
That's right. And they're going to see it, but they're also going to call you out. Like, I'm on one group right now and it's very negative. And it's good exposure, but the people that step on it, they're incredibly negative. And I never come off the mountain to roll in the ditch, so I'm not going to change their mind. But I have a lot of friends that come in and they wade in there and they fight the good fight, and it's very interesting to watch how things that were held to be the gold standard of shooting, that something simple like 3 yards, 3 seconds, three shots,
Oh yeah.
it's been
Hmm.
completely dismantled. I'm a force science analyst too. It's all this has been dismantled, but that stuff still exists for a certain category of shooters,
Yeah.
and they repeat it. And we're seeing people who are really doing good work out there and working on it. And I think podcasts like this too. You get to. I'm just a normal guy, but you get to look inside how somebody who spent their life pursuing a singular goal of martial proficiency thinks about
Hmm.
things. And what often shocks people is how incredibly positive I am about all this because it's the polishing of the soul. That's why we do it. We polish ourselves to get better. And the likelihood that I'll ever have to use force again is very little because I conduct myself in a much different way than I used to. You
Hmm.
know, I was Farnham's anti-rule when I was younger. I went to stupid places and did stupid things with stupid
Right.
people. you know,
Yep.
but I'm very different now. And I'm very happy to see the competency and getting and training has changed to first aid also, to de-escalation, to learning pepper spray, to carrying a handheld flashlight. All those things are dramatic changes across the board. And that's another good question, but it's interesting how it's mirroring itself, and it always has. I don't think most shooters understand how much the competitive shooters impact the high level operators, tier one units, uh,
Mhm.
FBI shooters at that level, because they come in and do all the training for them. It's never been these two camps.
Yep.
It's always been the camp of shooting.
Yeah.
And I don't know anymore. I can't really tell the difference if somebody's a tactical shooter or a performance shooter anymore. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They seem to have both
Mhm.
skills. They tend to implement it. So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah.
And that's in
It's
the
good.
last decade, a decade of that,
Yeah.
you know?
It's seems like
Hmm.
it has evolved fast.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of, like, well, 30 years ago we started this process and now it's finally, no,
Hmm.
it's been really speeding up. And I think
Yeah.
tech is
Yeah.
probably
Go ahead.
making it go a little faster as well.
Well, yeah, like this happened in jujitsu and fighting a lot. Like we come up with a new technique and nobody can figure it out for a couple of years. But then YouTube comes out and then everybody
Yep.
can figure it out. And then somebody will see you do it at a high level competition and they've already come up to the counter move of that, which means that everything's moving. But ultimately, what it came down to is a lot of the fringe techniques fell right off because they weren't principle based, And I see that in shooting quite a bit. Somebody comes up with this thing, we're going to do it this way, and then it falls apart at some point. It doesn't work well.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it had,
Hmm.
because as trainers, we have to be totally cognizant of what the unintended consequence of our training is because it's there, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like passing a law. You pass a law, there's an unintended consequence. What's the unintended consequence of how I'm training this person? If you're aware of it, then you can mitigate it. If you're not, you're going to replicate it. And then the third generation is going to be a mess, you know,
Yeah.
because they don't even know why you
Yeah.
said it anymore. So,
Right. And
yeah.
that's one of the things Spalding was pretty rigid on. He says you can be an instructor or you can be a teacher.
Yes.
You have to choose which
Hmm.
one you are.
Hmm.
You can regurgitate info or you could learn it, understand it,
Hmm.
and be able to deliver it in a better way so that your students understand it.
Hmm.
And that kind of jived with all the whole adult learning concept theory, all the other stuff. And it's like, yeah, okay, that all makes sense. Let's all make it work now.
Hmm.
Um, so that's the questions. Let's talk about a couple other things.
Good.
As I said earlier, I was doing a little last minute research again because I wanted to see, all right, I want to dig into Brian here a little
I
bit.
like that.
Um, and I saw on your webpage, and I love how you put it out there. There's no surprise. Your core four and your advanced core four.
Hmm.
And it was funny is I think I had something similar. I would call them, like the skill test I would have is
Hmm.
I would have like these are like the main four or something. I used to call it the, whatever's because they're like, what skills should I know to be proficient as a concealed carrier? And I'm like, well, it isn't a singular thing. There's a lot of little things that add up to that puzzle. But I said, if you wanted just a set of skills, get good at these because some of the other skills build on these. And then I saw that on your website. I'm like, well, God darn it. Brian figured it out. Which probably means I look at it this way, just for my own sake. Um, I'm on the right path
Hmm. Hmm.
because if guys that are at this level, your level, and Spalding, and some of these other guys, and they're all teaching about the same thing, and I already believe that. That means that I've been fortunate enough to been exposed to the right info,
Hmm.
and I can deliver the right info to my clients. So, when I saw that, it was a relief, and it was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And as I said before we got recording, um, I'm going to add something to my practice regimen just because I want to
Hmm.
try it. I want to see what happens. And then, talk, tell us about uh, where the core four came from and how you put it together.
So I think for the armed citizen, there's three essential things we have to be really good at. I mean, there's a lot of things, but just shooting in general. You need to be able to draw well from concealment. It's mandatory. You have to be good at that. It has to be from concealment. So that's a big deal. I think you need to be good at firing more than one or two shots. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you need to be able to make changes from singular to multiple shots or to a change in target. And then you need to be able to adjust how fast you need to shoot relative to the context. Instead of like a lot of people in the world are impatient, so they shoot
Mm-hmm.
faster than they can see. A lot of people are indecisive. They aim longer than they should. As I always say, there's two good ways to die in a gunfight. Draw your gun, empty it in all directions. You may live, but you're going to jail probably. It's going to cost you. Or carry a loaded gun and be too slow to shoot when it's time to shoot,
Mm-hmm.
which is indecisiveness. So I was trying to figure out how can I get people to make good decisions. A game theory is very helpful for an instructor to understand. How do our biases work? So I wanted to use probably the greatest scoring system that's ever been used, which is hit factor, which nobody
Yeah.
understands, but it's points versus time divided by time. So you
Okay.
have to be fast and accurate. You have no choice.
Yeah.
You know, you can get all the
Hmm.
points, but if it's too slow, the divisor's too large. And then if you shoot too
Almost like
quickly,
you've got
yeah,
to find a
balance it.
perfect
Yeah. Context.
lineup, right?
Yeah. And so that's really good. But I didn't realize how much people detest math. So we had to make a web page for this so that it does the math for you because that was the real level that people didn't want to get to. And I took exercises I thought were important, draw and fire two, a bill drill, to the body, one to the head, which we call failure to neutralize, but nobody's shooting it that fast. So it's a dual target technique, from
Mm-hmm.
a large target to a medium size, and then complex activity, which was to reload two. Never going to happen in a gunfight, but it's the idea of can I draw? Because the instructor's maximum used to be is the two most missed shots are on the draw and on the reload.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it four aces in the competitive circle. So it's a good manifestation. Uh, and then I started working on it, and it had an unintended consequence because it was all stand and deliver,
Okay.
which I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe happens in fights from my own experience. Nobody stands still, so movement needs to be involved. And my good friend John Holshan, who we lost this year, he said there needs to
Mm.
be a bit of movement in some of this training. And we talked about it in detail. So I made an advanced one that requires movement. And
I
it's
saw
very,
that.
yeah, it's interesting though, because apparently standing still creates a lot of tension. And I don't know where this quote came from, but one of my instructors looked it up the other day, and I'm apparently cited as the Wikipedia source for it now. I've
Oh
said it
boy.
so much. I didn't make it up, but I'm going to take full credit right now. But tension is the prejudgment of the outcome with a correction you don't need.
Hey,
So standing still makes people tense. It's like drag racing with your emergency brake on. It's
there you
interesting.
go.
People that like to move, when they start moving, tend to shoot a bit better. So then we start balancing necessary movement versus skills. And the unintended consequence, of course, of this is that it's a very hard test to shoot competently, consistently
Mm-hmm.
in four because you have to shoot them back to back to back. So you can't just get lucky and hook up. You have to be really present. And then being the graceful man that I am, the benevolent dictator, emphasize whatever part of that word you want. If you have a mic, which I can accept out of 15 shots, if you have a miss, you have to immediately reshoot the drill, which gives
Yeah.
you a chance to overcome the problem instead of fixate on the problem. Because we teach a
Yeah.
lot of failure avoidance in shooting instead of failure correction. It's likely in a fight you'll miss. How do I know? Athletically, we miss. Even in MMA, we're only 4 feet apart, and our hit rates are in the low 40%, 30%. So you're likely to miss. So what you do next is very important. The competitive saying was always this: a reshoot will get you killed. It's not true. It's only true if you don't reprogram the entire activity. If you only reprogram the singular error, it just appears somewhere else. So the
Right.
whole idea was to get people to make good decisions and shoot their current level of skill earned in practice in performance mode relative to their ability in the context. And that's seeing your dot and calling your shot, seeing your sights and calling your shot, and doing exactly what you can for your current level of skill. And it's very interesting when people shoot it, plus or minus 3% in either direction is their current skill, unless they have a major goof. And the way I
Okay.
figured that out was I always have somebody goes, hey, let me reshoot it again. I was like, all right, which always shocks them. I'm like, let's do it again. I'd see no change in it because it's their current level of skill. plus or minus 3% either direction. So like if you shoot a, say you shoot a 57% on the test, at 60, I give out a blue belt, jujitsu belts. It's just a little
Hmm.
ant to get people. You can shoot it on video if you guys want to look up the test. You can shoot it on video, or you can have somebody else witness it, or send me a picture of your target. I'll send you the patch up to brown belt, not black belt. You have to do that in front of me. All right. But at 57%, there's a chance you could get 60%. See how I'm baiting the hook? This is
I know.
all reward. I know how the brain works, so the reward center is now activated. So
Yeah.
if you get within it, I'll say let's shoot it again, and we very seldom see a change between 3% in either direction. It's just your current level of skill. Now, if
Okay.
you don't practice, then you live on the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is you have a high level expectation, a low level of
Yeah.
experience. And the problem for everybody you have to understand is the master is uncertain. Only the beginner is certain.
Hmm.
The more certain you are, the less likely you really know. And isn't that true? Don't we find that, that, oh, I can always do this when that's not true. I can't always do this. Out of 10 shots, I'm going to drop some
Yeah.
occasionally. So it was a
I had
decisional
a
thing.
I had a uh I had an instructor, shall remain nameless, who was bragging about his 1 second draw, sub 1 second draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And we just got talking on the range, and we're probably a couple hours into the class. We're just getting started. You know,
Hmm.
he's um and he spent most of the morning talking about this 1 second draw. And I didn't want to challenge him, so I just let it go. But then he set up and he did his draw, and it was like 1.4. Still, okay, fairly good. He was smooth. He was good. He was accurate. He did the job. He did the demo great. But then he spent the next six draws chasing that 1 second.
Uh-huh.
And so the three of the guys that I was with, we were kind of like, and we got talking. We're like, yeah, you got a 1 second draw after your warm up, right? After you worked it in, you got the muscles going a little bit. And another guy in the class he was the canary in the coal mine. He put his hands up and he's like, I thought you had a 1 second draw. He got targeted for this the class, but we were more professional. We were just like,
But
but
if you're a good shooter, what do you know? It's going to
yeah,
you're going to have a fumble. It costs you a quarter second. Maybe you have to aim a little
yeah,
bit more. It costs you a quarter. So a 1.5 draw is fantastic if you can do it on demand, you know,
yeah,
because
yeah. I
speed
was
mode's
like,
earning you that, but that speed mode's not real for most
yeah,
people, you know?
yeah. There are some guys I've met that I guarantee they could do a cold,
Yeah.
but they've probably done hundreds of
Hmm.
thousands, if not millions of reps. They probably do this stuff in their sleep.
Yep.
So, but it's just the skill building is just it's more important than like I told one guy, it's like it's what you do to get to the skill is more important than
Hmm.
if you decide that I'm just going to step up and do it.
Hmm.
You know, going back to Spalding, he has his 2x2x2 drill, and
Yeah.
that's the 2 rounds on the 3x5. And I put myself on a path, and I keep him up to date on it because he told me, because he said that one time he went out there and he did it like 8 or 9 times out of 10. He flubbed one because he got a little cocky.
Hmm.
And he's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna nail this," and it fell apart. I finally, after probably 2 years of just working every time I go to the range, I got to where I was ecstatic when I hit 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
I did it 10 times, hit it six under time and in the card, and then I got it to 8. I have yet to go higher. I'm working on it,
Hmm.
but if I can get to 9, I'm going to start videoing the whole session and I'm going to send it to that guy.
Hmm.
But he's like, "Hey, you
Yeah.
get 3 or 4, award yourself a belt," because his famous belt thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Nope." And I said, when I get to 8 out of 10, I'm going to give myself the belt.
Yeah. Well,
So
now you're really talking to yourself in the right way, though.
yeah,
You're
right.
saying I'm going to be truly capable of doing this 8 out of 10 times.
Mhm.
You know, and hell, you're even happy when it was 6 out of 10 all of a sudden.
Oh, I was blown
Because
away. It was just
yeah,
working.
but you know what most people do? It's like probably the guy who had the draw. He's done it a couple times,
Yeah.
or when he's at the height of his powers and he's feeling really good and no pressure on him. But what
Mhm.
happens when it goes into performance mode out of speed mode? It's a very
Yeah.
different thing for the brain. And
Yeah.
then you start making trades like, I'll slow down to see more, I'll try to draw faster, and they all lead to error. We're going
Yeah.
to get error, you know?
Hmm.
So, I
Human
always
nature.
caution people, train in accuracy and precision, learn to hit the target, do it with the least amount of errors between the distances, do speed and efficiency, learn how to be quick, but also do it with a little effort.
Hmm.
But performance mode is current level of skill earned in practice. And if you don't practice the right way, when you're put under pressure, you're going to get a different show than you want. I guarantee
Exactly. Yep.
it.
And I've been there.
I have too.
Yeah.
I am on my throne of hypocrisy right now.
You will be the best ever. Not like me. So let's get a plug out there for your trip behind the wall here to New Yorkistan in October.
Yeah, when you guys smuggle me in,
I'm gonna
I see my
smuggle you in. Yeah, we're gonna put you in like a big Pelican case. I'm gonna drive
yeah,
you to
yeah.
PA and pick you up.
I went to
Um,
Brazil to train and they had to hide me in the trunk, so I'm thinking that's how I get into New York.
it's pretty close. So you're coming up here October 10th and 11th
Yeah.
for, I believe it's the inner game of shooting.
Oh,
I think it's
fantastic.
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
I
favorite class among all my favorite classes.
we have. I thought about having you come up to do the deliberate coaching because I've got a
Yeah.
pretty good, cadre of instructors. But
Yeah.
I also figured let's get the exposure
Hmm.
first because talking to Shelly, the inner game has a little more draw.
Hmm. Yeah.
Heck, I've been trying to figure out if I can travel to one of your classes for the deliberate coaching. I'm going to keep an eye on your schedule
All right.
because I think it
Love
would
to
be
have you.
just I think it would be just fun to get on the
Yeah.
range with you and goof around with shooting targets and stuff.
Be wonderful.
Um, but the group that I put it out to is I have a training group that I've been doing for 5 years now. It's called a Handgun Master Group, and it's
Hmm.
10 months because we can't get 12 here, so we get 10 months of just once a month they're getting together and
Yeah.
shooting, and I've got a
Good.
great group of people. So I expect a lot of them are going to be in it. And then, obviously it's going to be open to everybody, open enrollment. So I know I'm looking forward to it. You're definitely going to like the range we're on. It's a private range. It's going to be cool. But
Beautiful.
just looking at all the stuff and doing the research, watching the videos, and I've sent a couple of videos to some of my training team, and they're like, one of them said the obvious thing: "Why hasn't Brian here been here before?" And I said, "Well, I can't bring everybody every year. This is a pretty heavy year of hosting. So,
Hmm.
um, I've
Thank you
got,
for doing it. That's a big deal.
oh, no,
Appreciate it.
no. Yeah.
Yep.
I love doing this because
Yep.
I get to get training here. Um, I get to expose other instructors to the students that I've probably worked with, and I get to see how they learn. I get to step outside my role a little bit,
Hmm.
but I also get to watch how they change with your influence.
Hmm.
And then I can use some of that material and use some of that, I guess you could say, the technique, and then I get to grow
Hmm.
and I get to evolve. So I tell people I'm an amalgam of like 12 different mentors I've had over my career,
Hmm.
and and then a blend of other instructors I've seen do stuff. So it's just amazing. um
Me too.
this the fun that is out there.
Yep.
So yeah, so October 10th and 11th, it's going to be fun. You and I will connect ahead of time and get all the other background arrangements done. We've got a little bit of time to worry about that.
Yeah. Anybody
Um,
who's interested in it, the inner game of shooting came about from the inner game of golf and tennis, which was the first book that influenced me as a coach.
there you
And it's
go.
experiential coaching. So instead of the usual coaching, it's a very different approach to it. He was able to teach people to play tennis in a matter of hours. And it
Hmm.
really influenced me. So we'll work on technical skills, but work on psychological and physiological skills that allow you to understand how you operate, which is not a lot what people talk about. We talk about the bad guy and how to shoot and do all these things, but this is how you actually have a reward system to get better, how to process information at higher speeds, how to break through, because we all have, it's very interesting. Human beings set a limit and then they don't want to go
Yeah.
past it. And
No.
if you've trained for a long time, you just described it on Dave Spalding's signature drill. It was a limiter, and it wasn't your
Yeah.
shooting. It was an internal limiter that said, I
Yeah.
can't do this yet, you know?
Right.
And it's probably interesting that you probably had bigger breakthroughs when you stopped caring so much. You start to let
Yeah.
go and just shoot, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what the inner game's about. It's learning how to process and improve yourself. And it works in a very different way than most people think. And most of
Hmm.
us that got good at shooting or anything did it backwards, you know? We were just stubborn and we didn't give up and we tried all these
Yeah.
horrific things, which is important. Attempts are important.
Oh yeah.
And creativity is important. So it's a very creative class, I hope, and I hope people enjoy it. And I'd love to see you there.
I think they will. Yeah. And
Yep.
I'm looking forward to, getting on the range and having you tell me where I suck and how to suck less.
Yeah. And where you're good,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Build me up
equally as
on that.
important. Yeah,
Yeah.
equally as important. You know, sometimes in life somebody comes by and says, "Hey, that's great. You need to do more of that."
Hmm.
My coaches have changed my life by saying that. When they
Yeah.
mean it, you
Hmm.
can't just say it to people. You've got to catch them in that moment of great.
Yeah.
you know,
I
and then
think,
really get them to notice it. Hey, celebrate this like you celebrated your failures just a second ago. Tell me
yeah,
how good you just did.
believe it or not, I think John was one of the first guys that did that to
Hmm.
me. Like
Hmm.
I had him I brought him here for his general defensive handgun when he was working
Hmm.
with Insights Training. And was doing, I don't remember what the skill was, but he came up, put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, "That's good. Keep doing that." It was
Hmm.
the same
Hmm.
version. And I felt like, "Ooh, the instructor just told me I'm doing something
Uh-huh.
great. A guy like John told me I'm doing
Hmm.
really good." And I was like, "Oh, I got like 4 feet taller and 5 feet wider, and I
Yeah.
felt like the man that day, right?"
Hmm.
Um, and I have used that on occasion on my students. I'm
Hmm.
like, I just walk by him and I'm like, you watch him shoot and you go, "That's awesome. Keep,
Hmm.
you got this." And then you just see them like they just start glowing. And then we feel good. We get a little tear in our eye and we go home and go,
Hmm.
"We had a good day." So
They desire you to tell them the truth
yeah.
when they need it without emotion, but they also
Hmm.
need to hear they did well
Yeah.
because that's what we're pursuing success. We're learning from failure, pursuing success.
I like it. I like it. So Brian, anything else you want to leave the viewers with? What
Uh,
else
you
do you want
know,
to share?
there's one thing I share with everybody. It's intrinsic motivators, and that's a fancy word for things that make you go internally. And
Okay.
they're very important for human beings. And we're kind of lacking that right now in the world. We have a lot of external motivators, but what actually makes people happy, but not happy, content? Happiness is a fool's gold. It doesn't really work that way. What would lead to a content human being? The first is you must seek your purpose. So we found ours,
Okay.
luckily. If you have purpose, you're not dangerous anymore. People without purpose are dangerous. Always will be.
Okay.
So find your purpose. Do something you're passionate about. Now, I love shooting. Doesn't mean I always like shooting. It means I love
Hmm.
shooting, but I don't always like what I do. Sometimes there are things I have to do that aren't, but I have a passion for it. The next is be curious. Always ask, well, how does this work? Why do I do it that way? When you miss, how did I miss? Curiosity leads to a flexible mind. The next thing that's very important is do it because you want to do it. We call it autonomy, but it's got to be your idea. Don't do it to please anybody else. Don't do it because of a possible gunfight. Do it because you want to do it. It'll always be hard to get started. The difference between good things and bad things is bad things are always easy to start and hard to stop, and good things are always hard to start and hard to stop. So it's a good way to think about the way we do.
Taking notes right
Perfect.
there.
And then the final one is seek mastery. You may never be a master of anything, but you always should seek to be a master of your craft. And what does that mean? That you are pursuing perfection of this, even though it's not likely to have. We can't attain perfection as humans, but we're pursuing the best version of ourself as opposed to how we were yesterday. And those things the brain loves. It'll get you
Hmm.
going in the morning. You'll be able to do the things you want to. Or you can simply say you're going to get started tomorrow and watch your whole life go by because it'll never come.
Yep. You're always 24 hours behind.
Yep. Yep. There's two
Yeah.
kingdoms we can't enter, the past and the future. And Those are the things as a coach we should always be looking for is get people on task, learn how to do these things, and the reward system then will take over and we create an inertia of learning and growth and improvement over time.
Very nice.
Huh,
I like that. I like that.
good. I think we've
And
learned a lot from each other tonight.
oh yeah, we had some fun.
Yeah.
Um, so Brian, thank you for coming on to the Match Grade podcast. Completely appreciate that. It was fun, and it was eye opening, more to understand a little bit about your training and what you're doing, but also, in this, as we said in the beginning, in this sharing thing that we can do as
Mhm.
instructors, um, we can hopefully make each other better,
Mhm.
and then we can go out and influence the rest of the world. We're in like behavior management or behavior
We are.
modification, right?
We are.
Risk management, behavior modification. um, but other than that, I guess one of the things that Ed always reminds me to say is, everybody, please go check out Brian. We're going to post. There's going to be a some info about how to get a hold of Brian, how you can reach out to him and get to a class or just see what he's up to. And if you're in the Western New York or anywhere in the Eastern Seaboard, and you're available sometime around October 10th and 11th, um, I think you should come to this class. Yeah,
Good
and
weather, I
then
hear that time of year.
it'll be good. Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah.
It won't be boiling hot where you're going to
Yep.
wonder where all the sweat's coming from, and definitely won't be frozen.
Yeah.
So it could be anywhere in between. But beginning of October is usually a good time. And so everybody, we will catch you on the next episode. In the meantime, got to say those four things. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe down below, hit that notification button, and share this thing out so that Brian and I can get out there into somebody else's face and talk about what we're doing. Other than that, gang, see you at the next one.